Scrutiny Committee on 18th of April 2024. I am Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy and I will be chairing this meeting. Before we move on to the next agenda item, please note that this meeting will be recorded. Can you ensure that all your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting? Members and officers who are present in the chamber or this committee room, please use their microphones. Don't need that. When we haven't got any, when asked to raise your hand, I'm not asking for either. Yeah, members who are virtually viewing this meeting, raise your electronic hand, and then members in this room just obviously raise your physical hand. For the purposes of declarations, I would like to confirm that we will be scrutinising items 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 and 13 on the Cabinet Board papers. Now I will move on to agenda item 2. Are there any declarations of interest?
Yeah, me. On item 13. My friend works for Advariant.
Agenda item 3, you will see minutes attached at pages. Sorry, Councillor Brigade. You're on mute, Sharon.
I sit on the board of Age Connects.
That's item 12, isn't it?
Yeah, 12.
Okay, thank you. You will see the minutes attached at pages 5 to 8 of the agenda pack. If you feel these minutes are accurate, record of the meeting, I will propose. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that these minutes are approved.
I can see no indications, Chair.
Thank you. Item 4, we will now move on to Cabinet's agenda for pre-decision scrutiny. Previously mentioned, we've decided to scrutinise items 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 and 13 on the Cabinet Board agenda.
What did you say?
6, 7, 8, 9, 12 and 13. Okay.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6, this is report for information. And officers, is there anything you wish to add to the report?
Yes, please, Chair. On this particular item, it particularly pertains to children's services, not all children's services, but children's services, because I know that Angela and Chalet will be bringing a report in the future around the services that they present around engagement and participation. So they wanted to add a particular report to that, Chair, in the future.
Yeah, no problem. And Oliver, you've got a question?
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking when they had a meeting with the landlords. It says over 100 attended. Do we know how many actual private landlords attended that as regards to officers? And do we know how many private landlords we have within MPT? And is it possible to have a list, if possible, of the private landlords, just as I can do a check then of how many private dwellings we got as regards to social housing? I'll be able to research, I'll be doing on myself.
Okay, can I just ask where that is on the report?
Page 29.
29.
Page 29.
I can come in to answer that, Councillor Davies, if you like. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to turn my camera off. It seems that I've frozen. I'm having problems with my Teams. So they were all private landlords. So we held a private landlord forum to provide support to landlords, to provide information and advice around things that may be of importance to them. And we will be doing these on a quarterly basis with the private rental landlords. We do not, unfortunately, have the information you've asked for in terms of a list of all private landlords within Neath, Talbot. So I'm unable to be able to provide you with that information, Councillor Stuart Davis, and I'm not clear. I'm not sure how many properties there are. I don't have that within my department. I can check with environmental health and the planning departments to see if they've got a list, and if so, I can ask them to send that to you.
Well, rather than a list of landlords, if we could just have, if possible, the number of private rentals so they can compare it against social landlords.
Yep, I can see if somewhere else within the council has that information and is able to share that information, and if so, I'll pass that on to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oliver, if on Rent Smart Wales, if you go on there and do your ward postcodes and that, you can actually it does come up with a lot of the private landlords in your area. Obviously those who are on it. So that's where I would advise you to go as well. And there is quite a bit of information of the landlords' names and details as well. Alan, come in.
Yes, with the permission, Chair.
Yeah.
Just to say, because I attended the meeting, and you know, I think it was very positive that so many people you know, attended. It was a bit of a squeeze actually in the room that had been booked for it. You know, so perhaps we'll have to look at a slightly bigger venue the next time. Obviously, we can't guarantee there'll always be the same number of people, but you know, the housing team and the environmental health team had worked very hard in promoting awareness of it, because obviously the sector is very important to us, and the you know, it really was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to because the National Landlords Forum attended as well, so it's an opportunity to promote good practice and standards. And you know, you mentioned, Chair, about Rent Smart Wales, because a representative from there also was present, you know, so we were able to share some key information, but also, of course, the landlords were able to also tell us about challenges facing the sector, which we, you know, some of which we know about, and some of which were more practical and specific for our area. So I think it was very well worthwhile, and hopefully can continue to be, you know, held on a very constructive basis in the future.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. I think in future as well, mind, if there are any events like that that are open, I think that the committee members, you know, should actually have an invite to, because there's like lots of information now. In fairness, Alan have shared that with us now, but we would normally like know about lots of things like that. So in this committee, sometimes I think there are a lot, if there is any conferences or things like that, I think maybe it should be opened up to committee members of that going forward. Yeah, it's just anything that's helpful that gets people to have better insight of services,
Yeah.
what's going on, and obviously best shared practice, because, you know, reading something and being somewhere and communicating in person is totally different. So if we can actually look at that going forward too. Again, it does get us out of these little rooms, don't it?
Absolutely, we would really welcome your support in these forums, so we would absolutely welcome that. Thank you for that offer.
Thanks, Shirley. Going straight on to agenda item 7. Again, this is for information only. We got one question on this. Is anything you wish to add, Andrew? It seems straightforward.
No, Chair, I think as you say, it's a straightforward paper. It doesn't give the detail, but it does give the overall statistics.
Yeah. Councillor Freaker, please.
Oh, yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, Andrew, I was just wondering if you could clarify, on page 40, it says these are the stages at which they're all resolved. So I can see we got stage 1 complaints and they're all resolved at stage 1, but I wondered if there were any complaints that went to a higher stage. On page 41, we've got things that were partially upheld, and I wondered if there were any appeals against the complaints. So that's one question. The next question is on page 42 about the corporate complaints procedure. Now, it says that there are instances where it doesn't fall within our remit, but I wondered if there were any complaints that went to that committee that were still related, obviously, to social services. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I come back on that? So Yes, there will have been a number of complaints that proceeded to different stages. So we have stage 1 of the complaints process. Then if there's what you called an appeal, Councillor Freegard, against the outcome of that, then that then goes automatically then to stage 2. And then if there's a further appeal, then that then goes for the Ombudsman to have a look at. So there are stages, and the appeal process is that the stage goes to the next stage, if you see what I mean. So the complaint goes to the next stage as the tariff increases. So it's stage 1, which is where council officers investigate those complaints. Stage 2 is where we have to get an independent person in and they investigate those complaints. And as I say, stage 3 is the Ombudsman looking at the process to see whether we've done that properly. And at times they will actually investigate complaints themselves if that's necessary.
So are you, oh, sorry.
No, sorry, Councillor Freegard.
Are you saying that we haven't had any stage 2s?
No, I'm not saying that. I believe that we will have had some stage 2s. I was just looking for it in the report.
Yeah, I was just saying, because before we used to have, like, you'd give the table where all the stages and the number of complaints and the outcomes were on it.
See, Kerry's got a hand up, so maybe Kerry's got a...
Yeah, and just looking at that, actually, I think that might be more helpful, Councillor Freegard. So to show it in that way, from a children's services perspective, overall the number of complaints remain low, but you are right, we have stage 1 complaints. The majority of our complaints are dealt with at stage 1. It's a process where the senior officers meet with the complainants in person, and I must say that it's down to the complaints team, Leighton Jones and Lisa Cody, that make that a very good experience for the complainants, and the majority of those are dealt with at stage 1. Though if a complainant wishes to proceed to stage 2, that's their right. That's when, as Andrew said, we bring in the independent investigator. Again, the principal officers along with myself and sometimes Andrew will meet with the complainants if we can't resolve matters at the end of stage 2. Very rarely now, it does happen, but very rarely do we have complaints progressing to the Ombudsman. And again, same process if that happens.
Thanks, Kerry. Yeah, thanks for that, Kerry. I do understand the process, but it's just because you've got, these are the complaints which were resolved. So I think it would be good going forward if the committee can have the stage 2 number of stage 2 complaints, and, like, you know, so that we can track and follow how many stage 1, stage 2 appeals, etc., if that would be possible, because that's showing 0 for stage 2 resolved. So we don't really know how many stage 2 complaints there's been.
Okay, if I just bring the director in a minute and then I'll go to Angela.
Yeah, so Councillor Freegard, I think that's a really good point. I'll undertake to make sure that the committee has that table for the time frame for this report. So we'll send that separately, and in the future report.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. What about the corporate one? The corporate complaints procedure, are there any that are directly related to social services that have gone there? Could we have the number of those as well when you going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Angela would.
Yeah, Angela?
Yeah, so I was just scrambling. We get this information weekly, Councillor Freegard. So the complaints team will send to me the number of freedom of information requests, the number of complaints, stage 1, stage 2, who's dealing with it, whether I'm within timescales or whether I'm outside timescales. So that information is available. You know, it's absolutely available, and it could have been contained in the report. The corporate ones, what you sometimes get is a complaint that it will span more than one directorate. So the corporate will coordinate it. Similarly with freedom of information, they'll coordinate that response, but they'll come to the directorate for specifics. So, but all that information is readily available. So I can easily get that committee section outside of this meeting if that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. Thanks. That would be helpful. Thanks.
I just want to make a statement. It's good to see that complaints have gone down since 2012 and that we seem to have more compliments than we do complaints. So that's really good to see.
Right, we go straight on to item 8, and this report is for decision. Is there anything else you wish to add?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So this policy that I put forward today sets out a process that officers would undertake to help to prevent people living in temporary accommodation from accruing arrears, and then what action we would take if people continuously fail to pay rent or their service charge. So it is really important for us that we support people in temporary accommodation to make regular payments towards these costs. And for those that do end up getting into arrears, that they are supported and helped to work towards paying off that debt. And the reason why this is so important is alongside the financial impact on the council when sums are due to us, when you have a history of not paying rent and have a history of bad debt, it then makes it a lot harder for those people to be able to move out of temporary accommodation into a new home that's secure. And then what happens is people end up stuck in temporary accommodation. And we know that extended periods of time in temporary accommodation isn't a good option for people because we believe everyone has the right to a secure home, and temporary accommodation isn't a secure home really. So alongside that though, it is very costly for the council when people stay in temporary accommodation for extended periods of time. So for example, we had one person that had to stay in temporary accommodation. They were there for around 18 months, and that came at a cost to the council of around £50,000. So what happens is if a person is eligible for housing benefit, then that housing benefit is paid directly to the council. So it's very rare that people would get behind paying their rent. But we do now have a new policy that we brought here in the last meeting. And that policy was looking at how we implement a rental charge to those people that aren't in receipt of housing benefit. So of course, alongside that policy, we do now need a policy like this to allow us to be able to take action if a person who is responsible for paying their rent doesn't then pay that rent to us. So alongside rent, though, we also implement something called a service charge, and that service charge is around £16.50 a week, which we require residents in temporary accommodation to pay. We feel this is a fair and affordable charge, given that there's not many other additional housing related costs for those people living in temporary accommodation, such as utility bills. But this is where we do see debts arising, because people in temporary accommodation are responsible for paying that charge directly to the council, and some people don't pass that money on and pay us despite the support we provide to them to help them manage their monies. The fact is that to date, there has been very little consequence if a person fails to make regular payments to us. And that unfortunately means that we do have situations where, for example, we have a scheme where everyone in that scheme, no one pays their service charge. So we've really got to reverse that. And this policy should then be able to help us to make sure that we've got a clear framework for how we're going to work with people that accrue arrears, and also alongside that help people to not get into debt in the first place. So hopefully I've been able to give you an overview of the paper, and I will hand back to you, Chair, for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. So can you give us assurance that this policy will not disadvantage vulnerable people that can struggle to make, so for instance, like a person with neurodiverse conditions, paying their own bills and things like that?
Absolutely. And that's really, really important, because people in temporary accommodation are some of our most vulnerable members of our communities, aren't they? And they're in a period in their life where it's a real struggle, and we don't want to be doing anything that makes it even harder for people to get back on their feet. And we also know, don't we, like you said, people with neurodiversity, people with learning difficulties, people with mental health, they can really struggle to do things that maybe you and I can do quite easily. So we do make sure that there's a lot of support there, and we would only be kind of implementing this policy where we are satisfied that we've done everything we can to support somebody, but they are still failing to be to pay the monies owed. So Anne-Marie is here, who oversees our temporary accommodation, and she might want to come in at a moment, but I'll just give you an overview of some of the kind of support we do. So, our staff as well are trained. So we're going through a big retraining program at the moment, and neurodiversity is something that everyone's going to be trained in, or is being trained in at this moment in time as well, to recognise those signs that someone may be struggling, or may need us to approach the way we support them differently. So when somebody is offered temporary accommodation, before the placement is made, we do speak to them and talk them through all the kind of like duties, responsibilities, the terms of the contract, how much things will cost, and we make sure that we do that in a way that people can understand, and make sure people understand their responsibilities as well. And then what happens is, when someone is placed into temporary accommodation, we have support and accommodation officers. So everyone is allocated a support and accommodation officer, and they will talk to the person, understand what's happening in that person's life, and develop a personal support plan for that person. And that would then look at all the kind of additional help that somebody might need over and above just having a roof over their head. So some of the things, for example, is we would maybe we would have cases where there's been deductions to somebody's universal credit, and that could then result in that person having less money available to them, and that can then make it a real struggle for them to pay their bills. So we would work with that person in universal credit to try and reduce the amount of money that they're taking off the universal credit. We will also link in with welfare rights, support them to link in with welfare rights around things like PIP applications. And we also are able to help people and refer people to specialist debt services as well. But of course, I've mentioned, things like mental health, neurodiversity. It can be really hard for people to actually attend appointments, for example, when there's a lot going off in their lives, and it's quite daunting. And also, people can attend appointments but maybe not understand everything that's said in those appointments. So our staff will provide support in attending appointments and making sure that the person understands everything that's being said. And also, another thing we do is we provide tenancy ready courses, and that then helps people to gain skills that they might need to manage a home, for example, budgeting as well. And we do also provide support to help people access employment. So if I just think about where we wouldn't implement this policy, there was a case recently, and it was a lady with a family. When she entered temporary accommodation, she was in receipt of full universal credit. So that meant she had housing benefit that was paid to us. She was able to make the service charges. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, that universal credit was suspended in full. And that also had a knock-on impact then on the housing benefit. So that was suspended in full. So what our staff did, they spent a lot of time supporting her to liaise with and work with the job centre and universal credit and housing benefit. And not only were we able to then support her in getting that universal credit reinstated, it also meant that it got backdated too. And then when it was backdated, she was able to pay the arrears. So that's like the kind of situation where we wouldn't use this policy, and hopefully shows that we do everything in our power to make sure somebody is in a position to be able to manage those payments as well. So I'm really sorry, my screen's frozen. Hopefully I've been able to give you that assurance.
Yeah, that's great, Shirley. Thank you for that. We've got Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, Shelley. Very informative. There's only one question I was going to ask. Do we have a figure of how many arrears we are chasing at present?
I haven't got that figure at the moment, but there are some notable arrears that I am aware of, but we can get that information for you. But we are looking at, you know, tens of thousands of pounds. There is a notable amount that we do need to progress.
No, thank you for that, Shelley.
Thank you.
Peter, please.
Shelley, can you just clarify, when they get to this pre-sign up stage, if they've got outstanding arrears, what's the situation then?
So we do a financial assessment. So when a person comes to us, you know, quite a few people will come to us with arrears. So we will do a financial assessment and see what their income is. We can help support them by, like I mentioned, we can signpost them to debt support services that can help to consolidate debts. We'll try and help them to enter. We can also have conversations with landlords as well. So we will start to have conversations with the previous landlord to try and make arrangements for more manageable payments to help them pay off that debt. Because the other thing is, if they don't pay off debts that they've accrued previously, again, that can be a massive barrier for them being able to obtain a new house as well. So we do a lot of work like that. And obviously, if after doing all that and looking at how we can maximize their income, if that financial assessment shows that someone would really struggle to pay this, then we can work, you know, with that person and reduce the amount of money, you know, because we obviously can't be putting anyone into significant severe financial hardship, but that would only be after we've absolutely explored every option.
So they could be accepted at the pre-sign up stage, and then you would go through that at that stage.
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
we wouldn't stop someone from, we wouldn't prevent someone from accessing temporary accommodation because they've got arrears. If we did that, probably half the people in temporary accommodation wouldn't be there, because sadly people do, you know, are struggling, you know, for very genuine reasons to pay the high costs of living and rent, especially in the private sector.
Thank you, Shelley.
As there's no more questions, the recommendation. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, could I just make a brief point? And it's grateful for all the questions and also for the information provided by Shelley, because I think that in addition to the actual policy that's before us today, I think it's given an insight into the range of service and support that's actually offered. You know, it's quite a complex service that's provided by Anne-Marie and her colleagues, and this is actually part, you know, this new approach here, and the fact that the you know, the level of support is being increased, and we see it as a continuum in a way between trying to prevent homelessness in the first instance, ensuring, if it happens, that there's suitable temporary accommodation, but also ensuring that as soon as possible we're able to assist people into more secure permanent accommodation, but that we equip people for that and for the responsibilities of tenancies, so to make sure that they're able to sustain those tenancies successfully in the future. So it's in well with what we've all been trying to achieve with the adoption of the new housing strategy, you know, fairly recently, but also the restructuring that's taken place within the department, to ensure that the teams that are addressing housing options, homelessness, temporary accommodation, so on, are working very well together, you know, to make sure that we're trying to prevent homelessness in the first instance, but then ensuring that there are sustainable solutions for that in the longer term.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Going back to item 8, the recommendation is listed on page 51 of the Cabinet Board agenda. I will propose to have a seconder, please.
I'll second.
The members, please indicate if they wish to abstain.
No abstentions, Chair.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I can't see any indication to the contrary, Chair's recommendation supported to Cabinet.
Agenda item 9, this report is also for decision. I think it's quite straightforward. Is there anything that you want to add to it? No. Oliver?
Thank you, Chair. Agenda 9, warm and welcoming spaces. Is it possible to have a list of the spaces so we could, as councillors, signpost people that come across us? Or is there a website link that I could check on?
Yes and yes. So I'll get that to you, Councillor Davis. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's it. That's all we have there. Okay. Recommendation is listed on page 78 of the Cabinet Board Agenda Pack and is for immediate implementation. I will propose. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Members, please indicate if they wish to abstain.
I can see no abstentions, Chair.
Members, if you do not indicate the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair. The recommendation is supported, Cabinet.
Agenda item 5, I have no urgent items. Agenda item 6, we will now need to consider the private items included on this Cabinet Board agenda. As you can see on the agenda, the private paragraph is there for everyone to read. I will propose, can I have a seconder, please, to move into private?
I'll second.
Can I please ask any public or press in attendance now to exit the meeting, and can the recording be stopped?